Talk about.
I am Virginia Loudan and I own Ginny Bites Bakery in Anoka. I just opened my storefront in February 2024. When the lovely Shelley messaged me and asked me if I would do this today, at first I just kind of sat at my desk like, why? Why me? And then but once I kind of really thought about, the last many years and talking with Shelley, she made me believe that maybe I did have a story to tell. And so here I am. And thank you for having me. Um, and then to make obviously a very long story, 47 years old, you've lived some years, there's a story. Try to condense that down for you guys just a little bit. But basically, I was born in the South. Um, my heart's in Louisiana, basically. Yeah, so when I was young, my parents split up. And my dad decided to move us to Minnesota, but my mother stayed in Louisiana. So I was raised between the two. And then as we get to where my bakery is today and my vision of where all that comes together in the end. um, I was very blessed to be raised by many really good home cooks. I'm not professionally trained, but since I was, a little girl able to reach the counter, I had my grandmother from Texas and my dad was raised in Key West and introduced me to Cuban food. And my mother-in-law is from Germany, so we get to dabble in that. My stepmom, who helped raise me, grew up in the Midwest with a German father and an Italian mother. So it's like just all of these wonderful eclectic foods have just been a part of my life. And um, food is love. Like that's where I am in my life right now. um, as a child, I grew up in a very large family. I had five brothers in the home. And so when your parents work full time and it's the 80s and you're the only girl, I cooked dinner a lot. And that's where I really got my start in baking and cooking is slow. You start out with hamburger helper and, tuna helper and all that stuff. And eventually you learn how to cook and you learn how to bake and you just rack up all that experience over time. Um, and like I said, I'm not professionally trained. I never went to school. I did try to go to school a couple times in my young adult self thought, oh, maybe I could do this, maybe I could do that. But I had two of my kids quite early and I struggled with the balance of working full time, trying to raise your kids the way you want to, super hands-on, trying to keep up with your grades and stuff. So a couple failures there. And I've learned over time, we just have to be okay with failure. There's going to be many times we do that over our lifetime. Many times. I can say from experience. Um, but I didn't always work in food. Like when I was young, I worked in customer service, restaurants, movie theaters, stuff like that. So, learning about food safety little by little along the way, learning how to interact with customers in a food related setting. But for my adult career, I basically worked at a car dealership chain for over 20 years, and I did human resources and accounting mostly over that time. So all these little things that were slowly growing in my back pocket through over the decades of just living my adult life and trying to raise my family. Um, and then, so then let's think about this. Oh, okay. So I had two kids, met my wonderful husband. We had my beautiful daughter. And then we decided, you know what? My older boys they're gonna grow up and they're gonna move out. And poor little Daphne's gonna be all alone and used to having siblings. Let's try to have one more baby. I got twins. So, and I remember, and I'm sure they've probably heard this story, but when we first found out we were having twins, it was literal deer in the headlights. You go home and you kind of just feel drunk with what, what's going to happen now. And so it took a couple weeks for me to adjust to the news, not because I didn't want more babies. I love babies and I'm super excited about them. But just in that moment, everything changed. I knew going forward it was going to be different. So we grew out of our house, we grew out of our car. I had decided years ago that I was going to dig into this car dealership job and I was going to work hard and I was going to become office manager and there's good benefits and all this stuff. Like I had a plan, I'm a planner. But then you guys, no, I'm just kidding. So I just remember sitting on the couch crying, and I wasn't crying because I was sad. I was just crying because I knew my life had just changed significantly and I didn't know what to do with that information. And my husband sat next to me and he put his arm around me and he basically told me, we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. It's going to work out. We'll figure it out. And I believed. So I worked until the day before I had them. And then I left my job and I became a stay-at-home mom for the first time ever. And it's one of those things that's always sounded super great, but who can afford it sometimes, to live on one income and have kids. But he was right. It it was working out. But I'm a worker. I'm a dreamer. I like to get my hands dirty. I like to do stuff. And after a while, I knew I needed something a little bit more for me, besides just, being home and raising these guys to the best of my ability. So I started thinking, if I could do whatever I wanted, what would I do? It would be food related, because all my life, all those decades, I liked hosting the family gatherings and cooking all the food. And I liked bringing the treats to the work potluck. Like, that's my happy place. So if maybe I could build something. Um, that is when, so the first thing I did was obviously go onto Google, and you go down that rabbit hole, which is long. Um, I decided to start a personal chef business that I could do very little on the side. My mother-in-law could come watch the kids while my husband was working, and I could get out. Mostly because I hadn't worked in years. I've never, done anything like that before. I couldn't afford to get like a commercial kitchen yet. I mean, what bank's gonna be like, here, have a loan. You haven't worked in 3 years. That sounds great. No, nobody does that. So I figured out, by being a personal chef, I could cook at the client's house. I'm not transferring cooked food. So that's kind of where I started. But also, while I was down that rabbit hole, I met Shelly, and I discovered what cottage foods was. I was like, I can do that. I can do that from home with my kids. And so, I mean, I don't know, it's been like what, 9 years or so since that. 10 years? What? Um,
Longer than 10 years, it's still, yeah,
it's incredible.
but I've known you probably 11.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So just meeting her and getting to learn what it was about. And back then there was what, 400 something, or I forget, in the state at the time. But yeah, so between those two things, by starting my little personal chef business and learning about cottage foods and doing that, it got me doing something that I loved, super part-time, so I could still be the stay-at-home mom, but still just do a little something for me, because I'm a worker and I wanted to be doing something. Um, at the time, the city of Anoka, that's where I live, they actually didn't know anything about cottage foods. So I actually had to go to city council, explain the cottage food law to them, made a little packet, got all organized. And they wanted me to change zoning, because that wasn't allowed as a home occupation at that time. And it was like a $300 fee, I think it was, to ask for a zoning change. But I went up to them, I said, here's the thing, this is a state law. I'll pay the 300 if I have to, but I don't think that's fair, because I'm not doing it for me. Literally anybody else who lives in the city of Anoka could sign up and be a part of this business. And so they listened, and it took a couple of months, but they passed the law, and now Anoka's on the list of the many cities across the state that allow it. So I thought that was a very fun learning experience. Let's see. So I had been doing that. I was staying at home, doing the personal chef, doing the cottage foods, doing all the stuff. After a while, I got a little bit burnt out. I'd never done anything like that before. I was feeling spread really thin. So I took a little dabble back into the car dealership business. I just wanted something easy. I was tired. And so I went back into the car business as HR, accounting, etc. But then, and that was in September of 2018. Did it for a little over a year, bringing the kids to daycare and all that stuff again. Once you have a taste of what it's like to work for yourself, it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to go back and start doing it for somebody else again, because you can see things in a different way. How would you do it? How don't you like that they're doing it? It's just, there's a liberation that's gone, right? So it was a little over a year. In December of 2019, I had a little mental break. And it wasn't really, I think it just, all this hard work, all this pushing, all this time, and I hadn't dealt with something from my childhood. And it all kind of culminated into this big moment where I literally just broke. And December 2019. So I talked to my boss. I gave my 2 months notice. 2 months. I said, I'll work through February, because I was in HR and it was a pain in the butt to find a good HR person. So then February 13th, 2020 was my last day at my corporate job. And I was thinking, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take care of me. I'm going to take care of my mental health. I'm going to take the summer off and enjoy it again with the kids. And then come fall, come September 2020, when the kids go back to school, I'm going to really dig in and do exactly what I want to do and make it happen. 2 weeks later, the universe spoke, and that did not happen. So I became a stay-at-home mom again. We hunkered down in our house and we got through COVID. And I was able to do a little bit of cottage foods on the side when I felt comfortable doing it. And that's just what it was. 2 years I homeschooled kids, and it was a really wonderful experience in a very strange time that I would have never done had that not happened. So blessing and a curse, but here we are. So then when the kids all got to go back to school, it was time to be like, yay, what am I going to do now? If I could literally have anything I wanted at this point, because the dreams have been pushed aside too long, I would like a premises. And I'd been working all these years, slowly building up my social media reach, my reach into the community, all that stuff, just trying to constantly grow and build. So got a wild pair of myself and decided to try and buy an empty building in Anoka. There had been this empty dry cleaners in downtown Anoka, which would be amazing, right? It's a parking lot, it'll be great. Launched a big Kickstarter, met a million contractors, talked to the bank, did everything, had big plans, learned how to write a business plan. Thanks, ChatGPT. Yeah, so right, and we're about 2 weeks before we're going to finally sign we're going to buy this building and the bank's going to give us the money and dig in. Well, they got the environmental report for the building, and it had been a dry cleaners for decades. And they looked at us and they're like, you know what? Anywhere but here, Jenny. We would love to help you build your business. Don't buy this building. So we listened. As much as I wanted it and how hard I had worked and how many people I told I was buying a building, it fell through because we listened to the smart people in our lives. And I'm glad we did. And that's another thing. You have to be okay with failure. Old Jenny, 20 years ago, Jenny, I would have bawled my eyes out. I would have been embarrassed. Not anymore. Life's too short. If you want something, go for it. And if you fail, oops, try again, a different way. So, but I had built up this following and people were listening and paying attention. And so they found there's a guy a town over that was selling his food trailer. And they said, we know you didn't get that building you wanted. What about a food truck? Okay, that sounds like a good time. I like cooking and yeah, let's do this. So we went, we looked at it, we bought it. And then by May, June 2023, we opened our food truck for this season. And I have new experience. I learned a lot more about different kinds of licensing and all that jazz. How to park a trailer, how to turn a truck with a trailer. Failed a bunch at that too. Broke a couple taillights, but that happens. Yeah, and that was a lot of fun. And then again, I've been making so much noise and around town. This is what I want. This is what I want. There was a bakery in downtown Anoka. They had been open for about a year and a half. She knew that I wanted a space of my own. And she was ready to close her doors because her plan didn't work out. She called me and said, I would like to close my bakery. Would you like me to get you in touch with the building owner? Yes, please. So in September 2023, I got the keys to my new bakery. And in my head, I'm thinking 2-3 months, maybe I can get the doors open. No, we didn't actually end up opening till February. So from September of 23 till February 24, we were building out our new bakery. Literally nothing goes as planned. And that I have learned is just how it is. Like that is, you should just assume that's the plan, that nothing's going to go to plan and you have to constantly be ready to pivot and change your ideas, what you think is going to happen. Yeah, so that is how I got to owning the bakery. And I was really thinking about what are all the tools or the things that really helped me along the way get to that point over the years. And the first and most important thing to me is my home support system. Whomever is in your life, whoever you spend the most of your time with, you make the decisions with, who you come home to at the end of the day, you all have to be on the same team and everybody has to get what understand the why. And So that's number one. You have to have people in your life that believe in you. And the balance, because like I said, I'm a planner, I'm a doer. I want to be volunteering at school. I want to be a good wife. I want to have a clean house. I want to have a bakery. I want to do this. Finding the balance between it all. Again, I fail at that from time to time, but I'm constantly trying to be better at it. And I think that's really important. Community events, like when you start out at Cottage Foods, you got to get out there. You got to tell people about yourselves. You got to try the farmers markets. You got to try the vendor events. You got to do all the things. You don't continue to do all of the things. You slowly figure out which ones work for you. Because you all do something a little bit different. You all live in a different community with a different customer base. Yeah, like the same thing with the food trailer. Like, sure, I would love to go do this event. And you sell $200 and you spent 500 on groceries. So you go home and you're like, I'm opening my driveway now because I have to recoup all this money. You know what I mean? So you have to find what your events are. You got to try a bunch to figure that out. One of the best things I ever did was joining my local Chamber of Commerce. I didn't realize it was going to be the best. Basically, I was working alone from home, but I was used to working in an office with a bunch of people I could say, grown-ups that I could say hi to and have coffee with and work with every day. So it was kind of lonely working alone. So I thought I'll join the chamber and I'll meet some people and it'll be great to get out of the house, a couple times a month. Didn't know it at the time, but I was meeting fellow small business owners, big business owners, lawyers, bankers, all kinds of people who, when I got to that point in my life where I was ready to take the next step, I already knew them all. And I knew the ones that I really bonded with and could trust. And it was so easy. Call the bank. Let's make an appointment. And they already knew who I was and had watched me grow over those years. That was amazing. Join your local chamber. And the big guys love supporting the little guys, I gotta say. They're very excited to buy cookies and cakes and stuff from a small home-based business as opposed to going to a Costco or wherever, you know what I mean? They really want to support you, so let them. Another couple things, basically, if you have plans, and technically you should do this anyway, but if you have plans and you want to grow, you need to account for every single penny you earn and every single penny you spend. Like back in the day when me and my husband were young, we worked at a restaurant. We knew we wanted to buy a house. And it's so easy as a server to not count those cash tips. They don't need to know about that. You know what? If you want the bank to take you seriously, you need to prove exactly how much you're making. So it'd be like my mother-in-law come into the bakery and want to buy a couple cupcakes on the side. I quit trying to explain it. I just nod and I smile, and when she leaves, I ring that up and it goes in my register on my daily count because I want the bank to take me serious and know exactly how well I'm doing. You know what I mean? Same thing with keeping track of your expenses. So important. You spend a lot to make what you make. It's just very helpful when trying to reach your goals. I used to do my own taxes. Highly don't recommend anymore. Once you reach a certain point in your business, it's just too complicated and the rules are changing all the time. And you're probably doing yourself a financial disservice to do it yourself once you reach a certain point. In the early days when I was selling a handful of cakes a year, sure, an Excel spreadsheet and a Schedule C was great. We're past that. And again, the bank will take you way more seriously. And then the last two really big points is social media. And I actually get a lot of compliments on my social media presence. What a lot of people don't realize is how long it took me to get there. Over 10 years. I started dabbling before I met Shelly, and it takes a long time to build your voice, to build your brand. In the early days, I made the mistake of, I was mostly just posting on my personal page. And that's okay for a little while. But after a while, your friends, your family, your closest people will get a little bit exhausted of constantly seeing the business when sometimes they just want to know about you. They love you. They're in your life. It's an easy way to stay connected. So making the separation of business and personal, and on your business, you should put a little bit of personal in there. You don't want to be a robot. You know what I mean? You have to show people who you are as a human. to get them to want to be a part of the greatness that you're making. So that was one of my biggest lessons, is the separation, and then just consistency. Consistency. If we go on vacation, I don't be like, I'm going on vacation. I will schedule posts to run every single day I'm on vacation so we don't drop out of the algorithm. And I think that really, things like that really help a lot, just staying engaged, making sure people know who you are and not alienating those who are closest to you in your life. And it'll take a long time. It'll take a really long time. It's a constant process. And then just, yeah, what brings you joy? Like I used to say yes to everything. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do that. But I don't really want to do that. I just want the money and I want the experience. So it's all part of the thing with just like with your social media, is finding your brand, finding who you are, finding what you want to make. Like you said, you like cookies and not cakes. There's plenty of people there that would just keep making cakes anyway, because I'm a baker, I'm supposed to make cakes. This is your business and you get to do whatever you want with it. You make what brings you the ultimate joy. And that's basically what I prepared. That's how I got where I am. And there's way more things I want to do, and it's going to take time and effort to keep going. Yeah. Questions? I'll dance.
You should introduce your family.
Oh man. Okay. This is my wonderful husband, Alan. We've been together since 2002. Love at first sight. Daphne is my daughter. She's a freshman at Anoka High School, an incredible tuba player in the marching band. Yeah. And then my twins, Edwin and Zane, whom are 12 and in 6th grade. Yeah. And I have 2 more, Raul and Diego, who aren't with us today, but I have adult boys as well. Yeah. Yeah, they're not here. Yeah, okay. Good point. Oh my gosh, yeah. In August of 2014, an old childhood friend found out one of her children had cancer. And again, deep in it, raising our own family, not a lot of extra money. I didn't really know what to do, but I looked at my 2 best friends. I said, what can we do? Let's cook them some meals. So we did. So we got together and we cooked like a week's worth of meals, froze them all up, found a donated freezer because they didn't have one big enough to keep the food we were bringing to their house, and brought it to their house. And it worked out really great for the, so on the nights where they were, you're stuck in doctor's appointments and you're still working because you need to keep your benefits, and you ended up going through the McDonald's drive-through too much and there's no time to even go buy toilet paper. They really found that these meals were helpful, and didn't realize how helpful till we did it. So we just started doing that once a month. We got together and did this for them. And then when their daughter passed away, we realized we really enjoyed getting together, cooking these meals and bringing it to somebody. So we just kept doing it. And then we eventually made it into a real 501c3 called Food with Love. And yeah, we meet once a month to make meals for local families who are dealing with somebody in their home who has a serious or terminal illness. We did have to take a little bit of a hiatus during and after COVID. COVID mostly for everybody's safety, because everybody we're cooking for has somebody immunocompromised in their home. So we pulled back a bit, and then we tried to bring it back to life a couple of times, but people weren't ready to start accepting home cooked food from strangers yet. But I think we're finally back, so I'm pretty excited about that. Yeah.
Did you, I personally myself, I have a friend who has cancer, she had her benefit, and I donated 360 cookies, I handed out.
Yeah.
Did you do donations and stuff like that to help get in out there as well?
I have done all kinds of things like that. Yeah, I've donated to nonprofits, given deals to businesses, all kinds of stuff over time. I like to do philanthropic things, but at the same time, especially now that I have the bakery open, I really see almost every single day, somebody is asking for something. And so, and as the person who wants to say yes to all the things, just from a business perspective, I had to really teach myself to pull back and choose to do the things that were actually something I believed in, regardless of whether it was going to be a discount or a donation. Just reining it in a little bit. But as as often as you're able, it's wonderful to help people, and it is a good way to get your name up there. Yeah.
There are really big difference in the process between your food truck and then the licenses that you have to get for the paper.
Yeah, I feel like the bakery itself was much more straightforward to figure out. You're opening a storefront, you need this from the MDA and you need this from the county. You're in this county, so you don't need this. With the food truck, it's a lot more confusing because every single county, every single city, almost every single event has their own rules, their own forms. They make it really hard. So I felt like at least figuring out how to license a bakery was way easier than figuring out how to license the food truck. Yeah.
I've always wondered, because for the last 10 years, we've learned a lot about personal chefs, especially when we first started out. And I'm just curious, what is the process for becoming a personal chef? Is that something that is actually regulated by the MPA, or is that something you can have into somebody's home?
I confused a lot of people when I started digging into this and asking questions, like my house insurance, be like, I need insurance. They're like, what are you doing? I'm cooking at other people's house. What? Who does this? Like they had to make phone calls. Because I'm going to somebody's house, cooking in their own, and this was all the reason I was able to do it, cooking in their kitchen. I'm not transporting cooked foods of any kind. I'm going to the grocery store. I'm bringing my groceries to their house, cooking it and leaving it. Nobody had to license me, which was pretty amazing. I didn't really have a lot of, I had my, I had some cooking equipment, like my pots and pans that I liked the best, and a bag of spice blends and parchment paper and stuff like that. So I had a couple, like 31 totes of my supplies. But really that's it. But I did make sure to get insured. And again, my homeowner's insurance was confused. They ended up putting a rider, a separate little, it was like $30 a month rider. This was many years ago now, on my home that covered me when I was cooking in somebody else's kitchen. And they had to do some research to get there because they did not know what to do with me when I asked. But yeah, that's why I gravitated towards that. It was a lot of fun. I liked doing it. Yeah.
What are the pros and cons of being a producer and having your own business?
Having your own bakery is a lot, believe it or not, more hours and more work. When I opened the bakery in February, started out at 80 hours a week, 7 days a week for 80 hours. And you got to think about it. You're building up your processes for the first time. You're training in all your people. You don't know anybody well enough yet to hand keys over. So I was basically there before open and till close every day. Not an ideal situation. But you got to start somewhere, and that's where I chose to start. By the end of year one, actually shortly before the end of year one, I was down to 6 days a week, and I'd say I'm at about 60 hours a week. And with the goal being by the end of year two to be down to about 45 hours a week at 5 days. Because I'm off on Sundays. I'll probably have to be off during a regular day of the week most of the time, just because Saturday is the busiest day. That's when the events are. That's when a lot of the treat pickups are. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, it's just trying to build your team, figuring out who you can trust, who could you give the key, who's going to run it the way you want it. When you're in a kitchen at home, it's your way. Get out of my way. This is my kitchen. Now I have to share my kitchen and share my customers with other people that I have to trust to do it the way I want them to. So it just takes a little time to build up the team. Yeah.
So kind of off that too, the trusting your staff. A lot of us that do the cottage foods and baking, obviously, we've built these recipes up. How do you, I'm assuming you have, a standard recipe that your staff uses, so every cookie, every pie is the same.
Yep. And even then,
but how do you
always come up
yeah.
the same. They don't know
how do you work that with your staff to trust them, and then I could give away, like if you've got grandma's secret recipe that you use for your key lime pie.
Yeah.
Because I love your key lime pie.
Yeah. On it, there's a lot of just trust. So like I have the recipes, years ago, you find a recipe online, you give it a try, you figure out what they did wrong, and then you write all over it the way that it should be done, right? That's how a lot of my recipes are. But I do have some family of my key lime pie recipes, what my dad brought me from Key West and stuff like that. I feel like there's only a handful of employees. It's not like I'm having people sign NDA agreements or anything. Just trusting them, getting to know them a little bit, helping them the first couple times they make a recipe is helpful, because like maybe they're not doing the crust edges just the way you would like it presented, or why are their crinkle cookies coming out a different color than my crinkle cookies, and it's just working with each person because they're all coming from different backgrounds of where they learned to bake and cook. So yeah, it's just being really hands-on until they're ready to do their own thing. But yeah,
because you built up your reputation on how your things look and taste, and you don't want that to get lessened because your staff isn't.
Yeah, again,
doesn't have the expectations there.
10, 20 years ago, Jenny would have had a much harder time with that. But especially Food with Love really taught me how to share my kitchen with other people better than I used to be at that.
So you have a question from somebody online. In the beginning of the bakery, were you the only one operating it, or did you start out with staff right away at the?
I started out with a full staff right away. I had one full-time baker because like the bakery was going to be open from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. I knew obviously I would need help because I'm also doing the payroll, I'm doing the social media, I'm doing the invoice entering, I'm doing the errands to go get ingredients, like literally anything the other people don't do, I do. So I knew I needed help. So I started with a full-time baker, like a weekday cashier, a handful of people to rotate on the weekends for cashiering, and just started with that, and a couple part-time bakers to come in after the other one would leave. Like I found a student at the time, but yeah, not just me, a little team of people that I found that were ready to start by opening day.
So you mentioned like when you first started looking at bakeries and Kickstarter, things like that. Best tips for helping you finance as you like we just got myself. We're trying to grow and figure that out.
Yep. I mean,
financing is a huge part of trying to figure new equipment that we need now in our new kitchen.
Yeah, and honestly, with all the changes happening just nationally right now, I don't know how things are going to change with banking and loans and grants. I have no idea how that's going to change. For me, it was just, making sure over the years, like just obviously paying our bills on time, trying to keep that credit score up. And with the chamber, building the relationships with bankers so they would get to know me. Obviously, you're going to need to put a little money down. So setting aside, like I said, there's not like a magic number, of this is exactly how much you need, because is it going to be an SBA loan? Are you going to be able to get a grant through what is it, MCCD? I forget. Oh, there's like a program out there that can help you secure some grant money, especially for women-owned and minority-owned businesses. But yeah, just like knowing your options, finding a banker you trust that can help you through every single step of the way was huge. I had met this guy, Tony, from a local bank, and he answered the phone almost every single time. And if he didn't, he called me right back. And he wasn't trying, and he's the one that told us not to buy the building, which made me super comfortable with him. They weren't just trying to get a loan and get a percentage out of us. They were legitimately looking out for our best interests in the long run. Find that banker.
Didn't you do a Kickstarter?
I did, and I failed. Yeah, they never became funded, but it was super fun to try. I started, I forget, I know I did a.
Sorry, that was really convincing. It was super fun.
It was. No, it was really fun. Yeah, to try, like, to get the community behind you and get excited about a project. Like, yeah. I mean, people saw my passion for it and were already passionate with me, and I didn't even get there yet. Like, imagine how if I would have got to opening day on that project. But again, then when I finally did get my spot, like, you have all these people rooting for you then. So, I mean, it's worth a shot. You just have to be super consistent. There's plenty of people that go and do a crowdfunding thing, but they never go in and do the blog posts, and they never share the pictures along the way. Gotta play the game. You gotta play the game to get there.
Virginia was also the first person who was cottage food producer who was interviewed on the news after the bill passed.
Yeah, that's right, because you were out of town. I know, like, sure, come to my house. Also fun, all experiences along the journey.
When you, and I know, obviously you don't need to give specific numbers, because that's your business,
Yeah.
but when you start, because you started out with a full staff, like you said,
Mhm.
how much, like even like on a percent or just a ballpark, did you have set aside or in the bank to pay the, get your payroll, make
Yeah.
phrases, meet your expenses before the money started coming in?
That's a good question. So basically, I took out a SBA loan. Spent a bunch of it getting there, a little bit more than I wanted to because hiccups along the way literally did just keep popping up. So I think when I opened the bakery, I had enough left. I could have covered like payroll and ingredients and such for about 3 months. And then it would be gone. And then it's like basically I looked at my staff when I'm pretty open with my staff about certain things. And you get to the point where like, you just go to work and you take it for granted that things are just going to be happening. But I looked at them, I'm like, we are on our own 2 feet now. The SBA loan is officially spent. Going forward, what we make is what we're doing now. So please pre-rinse all of your dishes. Like I explain to them how every little thing adds up. Pre-rinse all your dishes so our soap lasts longer and our dishwater, lasts a normal amount of time. When you're packaging things, wait to take the whole order before you start packaging their things so you can figure out the least amount of appropriate packaging to send out the door. Not only does it help my bottom line, better for the earth. And just all those little things that I could teach them along the way to make them not take for granted the money that's coming in and out of the bakery. They don't know how much that is, but they do also need to respect it and understand that we're little.
Right.
We have to all do our best to make sure we succeed.
Throwing away one cupcake makes a big deal.
Yeah. Keeping track, like, dropped a cookie on the floor and threw it away. And I'll be like, remember, we have to note that. I get to write that off as a disposed of product or a loss. Yeah. Yeah. It's just training them all over time to try to treat the bakery as if it was your money. Yeah.
Seems to me that the most important things that you need to do before you get to the brick and mortar step is to build up your clientele. I know that. Clientele,
Yeah.
follow you to the bakery.
Yeah. And timing in life also, like if I when these guys were like 2 and 3, wouldn't have been the right time for me personally to go and open a bakery and work 80 hours a week for like 6 months in a row. The timing in my life also had to match up big time. They can all get themselves up in the morning and get on the bus and grab a breakfast, and it all worked out at the right time for him.
Several food competitions also.
Yeah, I like to play. I do mostly used to do like online, just little online competitions. It's just fun. It's a fun reason to cook and to bake, and it's a fun reason to take pretty pictures of your food and share them with people. I got away from it a little bit because I found out a lot of the contests online are nobody's out there actually tasting your food, which kind of takes a little bit of the fun away from me. They're looking at a picture, they're looking at a number of likes. They might read the recipe and perceive what it tastes like. So I tried to pull back quite a bit from those kinds of competitions. We did get to go compete in the 2016 World Food Championships because I was the only person in Minnesota that entered the Taste of America Challenge that year. So I got the ticket, and that's okay with me. Doesn't matter how you get there. It just was really fun to go. And then we had to Myrtle Beach in September and was in the World Open Chili Cook-Off. And there was like four different competitions going at the same time. But in our group, we took 3rd with my white chicken chili, and my daughter was my sous chef. So that was a lot of fun. roasting poblanos over an open fire like a champ. Yeah. And now, like I said, I try to stay away from online competitions, but I am in one right now. I don't know if you guys have seen people posting about vote for me on favorite chef. I have no idea how many chefs are in there. There's probably a zillion groups. It is an online voting competition, popularity contest kind of thing. But the prize is $25,000 and a chance at a couple cooking experiences with some famous chefs. So I said, I'll break the rules a little bit for this one. Let's give it a go. Yeah.
Where do you go vote?
Vote for me. Yeah. Yeah. That would be so fun.
One more.
Yeah.
About the what is your inspiration behind your bakery?
I have a love for nostalgia and elders of my family. Like I said, I come from many great cooks. So, and they're mostly not with me anymore. My dad's influence on me with his Southern and Cuban style cooking. My mother's influence on me because she was from Louisiana. My great aunt Dot and Uncle Elvis in Texas, and just like all these people. Like I remember going, we could have not talked in years, and I could show up on their doorstep and she'd take me in and she'd make me biscuits and gravy for breakfast. And it was just, all these wonderful people that used to cook for you and leave you good memories. So Ginny Bites Bakery is kind of me channeling that inner Southern grandma vibe, meets Minnesota, meets strange little old me. But yeah, I want it to feel like basically you're going to your cool grandma's house and she's made you some pie and she's got some cool stuff on the shelf. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm going for. Yeah. Louisiana meets
You get
Minnesota.
biscuits and gravy.
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes a po' boy, sometimes gumbo. I like to throw those little lunch specials in to keep people interested in coming back. Yeah. Yeah.
What's your thoughts on product offerings as a business? Can you get too spread out to where it's putting too much stress on your staff?
Yeah.
Or it makes things unprofitable to make because you're so spread out and not necessarily focusing on profitable items?
Yeah, you have to pick your direction. What do you want people to see when they come in the door? What makes you happy to make? I will say almost every single day a customer will come in and be like, oh, you don't have bread? Not that kind of bakery. They're like, well, you should have bread. Or the next day somebody will come in and be like, oh, you should have gluten-free. And then the next day somebody come in, oh, you should have dye-free. And then the next person comes in and you should. Get your own bakery. There's so many things to bake, and I will tell them there's a place around the corner that most likely has bread. There's this cottage foods baker I know that's really good at gluten-free. That is what I did. But when you come here, this is what I want to make. I want to make pies and cookies and cakes and things like that. That's my place. But I get the you shoulds every day. So you just got to pick what you should do and not listen to the other you shoulds.
I told my
Multiple times a week. Like, you don't have? I'm like, oh, I'm a fryer. Well, can you bake donuts? I'm like, you can, but do I know? I don't want to eat that. I want a deep fried donut.
From one fritters and I make fritters. He goes, see, you're making donuts. I was like,
Oh, yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah, but you can definitely get too spread out. You have to choose your direction and what makes you happy and do that. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Yet another new experience. I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.
The lady online said you're fantastic.
I love you too. Lady on.
Okay. Can you see that? Oh.
Well, what the world? Hold on. For what I see? You see all of that. I'm trying to get rid of this.
Oh, I think.
There we go.
Yes.
Wait a minute here. How do I go back? There we go. Sorry, guys. I'm just trying to move this out of the way so it doesn't get in the way. Is that better?
Yep.
Okay. Alrighty. So welcome back, everybody. I'm definitely not Jody Burke. Unfortunately, she had a family, or fortunately for her, she had an unexpected family activity event come up last minute. And she was really bummed that she couldn't make it and attend with us. But she did send us this PowerPoint to give us a Cottage Foods and Licensing Liaison 2024 recap. Okay. So what I'm going to do is Shelley or Tom or Ryan or Christine or Jamie or somebody, if there's any questions that we can't answer and we need to get back to Jody, can we, will one of you write them down and who asked? Okay. You got that? Christine said she'd do it.
I got it.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much. And she did give me some lovely notes. So I printed out this and here we go. Alrighty. So cottage food pet treats exemption. You can see the exemption 28.152 and 25.391 is a pet food treat exemption. Both part of cottage foods to make non-potentially hazardous human foods, which we all know. We've talked today. What is the pH? 4.6 or? And how about water activity? 0.85 or less. We can sell from home, farmers market, or community event. Is everybody fully aware of community event now? Is any community event? It is not based on financial structure and it means more than one vendor. Okay. Training and registrations required, labeling requirements, no wholesaling, and shipping pet treats only. While the MDA receives a lot of inquiries about wanting to start a home food business, they generally provide the cottage food registration information to these people. A lot of inquiries, though, that they receive are from current registered producers and involve education on the types of foods allowed and how and when sales can be made. Okay. Is everybody in here pretty comfortable about how and when sales can be made? Anybody have any questions on that we need to? Okay. Next slide. Okay.
So when bring the vendor, like more than one vendor, if you got one person selling arts and crafts and one person selling food, that's gonna qualify as two vendors.
Yes, when we agreed on the community event language, there was a group of us that got together. It was cottage food producers. Jane Jewett was on it, the MDA was on it, Muriel was part of it. I can't remember who else. MDH had a representative. And then what is it? Anyways, there was a bunch of different interested people on this. We actually came up as an association with the definition and which was used, and they submitted it to the MDA. MDA came back, added a few words to it. Beginning and ending date was one of it, and multiple vendors. So yes, it can be two vendors. You can now, let's say it was a pop-up at a location. That location is not one vendor. It has to be a community event and there has to be two vendors. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? And somebody else was raising their hand. Nope, okay. Okay. Common inquiries about foods. Can I make this? Egg rolls, charcuterie boards, cheesecakes, tamales, freeze-dried foods, meal prep service, shipping, selling at stores, water activity of baked goods, and transition from cottage food registration to food license. That's a majority of their common inquiries. This I found interesting. So the total inquiries that the licensing liaison gets via email, voicemail, or online requests, and this is for all registrations and food licenses, is 8,076. They average 155 per week, and 18% of these inquiries are cottage food. So if you break that down, about 28 of the weekly questions relate to cottage foods, which is 1,448 annually. Looking at current registration, current registration that expires 12/31/25, and I know that was current as of, I think, Friday. Oh, 4/3, excuse me, there were 7,742 current. There are 4,721 not yet renewed from 2024. They're estimating that they should have about 12,463 registered cottage food producers by the end of this year, if everybody registers. If you look at the graph here, 2015, 464 was the final number at the end of the year. The first year, 2015, so that was from July 1st to December 31st. And now at the end of 2024, 10,853. See what she had to say. Yeah, so in the second year, cottage food registrations tripled. And every year since then, at the end, up through 24, they've seen an increase of approximately 40%. The percentage of tier 1 versus tier 2 registrations each year remains consistent, with tier 2 registrations being approximately 4 to 6% of the total cottage food registrations. And so the green on the graph is the new registrations, the blue is the reoccurring, and I thought she had tier 1 and tier 2, but maybe she doesn't. She can kind of see that in the next slide here. Total versus percentage of new registrants. So the new is represented by the gold line through there. And here is a graph of tier 1 versus tier 2 registration. Any thoughts or comments on these? Yes, the information.
First in 2016, and it's not my information. What to do, but now.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the website cottage food data map. She's highlighted a few things, the forms and resources. And then right here, that map over there, if you click on that on their website, it'll bring you to that heat map where you can actually hover over each county to see how many registered cottage food producers there are. In the forms and resource box, they've added a simple fact sheet too about what cottage food exemption is with a summary of the 2024 statistics. Quick question for everybody. If you haven't received your registration certificate in the mail, do you all know how to look it up online? How about online? Does everybody online know how to look it up too? Because there is a site where it's MDA license search. You can actually go and look it up at any time.
Yes. They said yes.
Okay.
Amanda and Darren said.
Okay, fantastic.
If for some reason you never got it, if for some reason you never got it, is there a way to like, or like, can you is there a way to print it from online, or do you have to like request a second?
Well, what I would do if it was me, I would request a second copy from the MDA, but I would go onto that MDA license lookup and search all. And then you can select just cottage foods, you put in your last name. And then you can pull it up. I'd print off that page if you're going to a market or something like that, especially if there was individual and if it was a city like, I don't know, isn't Minneapolis the one that they do separate inspections and different things like that? I'm not. Yeah, okay.
I mean, the first thing I do is get my
Yeah, you can print it on.
so that if I need to.
Have it with you.
I don't know if everybody heard that, but this is a great idea too.
When I get my certificate, the first thing I do is I take a picture of it.
Yeah.
And if something happens to it, the water tank, all that kind of stuff. Print
You
it.
can reprint it.
I save it in my favorites and my photo album.
Yep.
Driver's license, Justin.
And I have the Adobe app on my phone where I can actually scan it. So it just print off just the certificate too. So yeah.
Like, or type of, like this markets that I run, and so I can put it up to, like, if they send their information. I can go and pull it up, and like in mine, I do print it off, and it has like the name, the business name, the DBA, it has all the relevant information with that number.
Oh.
So that if inspectors and you can at least say, well, this is me, this is my information about.
And I do believe that that information would forever for that, but that information cannot be used instead of a certificate. So yeah, that's a good, like, CYA.
If something's lost.
Exactly, but ultimately, that's that specific thing that they want.
But I printed that like when I've been waiting
Right.
Mhm.
for it to come in the mail, so that if anybody would show up, say, I could say, look, it's online, and I registered, I just haven't.
Yeah, and if for some reason you don't have that certificate, after you've you've completed your registration and done the training and that type of thing, you are considered within 30 days of receipt. So like when you first register online, always print off all of that information so you have a copy of it, or do a screen print and save that online, because it does happen. Sometimes things get lost in the mail, so. Okay, if you have any questions, 651-201-6062. MDA licensing at state.mn.us. And note that they're going to be phasing out the phone number and email address up there, and it's going to switch to 651, or are they phasing out this one? We'll eventually be phasing out this phone number. And okay, so the bottom one, if you have this one saved for any reason, replace it with this one up here, because they're phasing this one out. And I know for a fact from somebody who changed positions or retired from the MDA, sending that email, it never bounced back to me to this one person forever. And they actually changed the person I did a data request for. So make sure you write that down. Any questions? That is the update from the MDA. Yeah. So now, can you see me in front of this, or do I need to, can you stop screen sharing?
Well, your screen sharing.
Oh, sorry. There we are. Alrighty. So now we're gonna roll into a legislative update. And Shelley, do you want to come up here and give it with me? Everybody getting sick of seeing me, I bet.
You're just gonna talk, I'm just gonna stand there.
Sorry.
How's it look?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Look like a big black blob.
Now we're black and purple.
Here,
block.
Kelly, remember those are the two spots.
Okay. Alrighty, so legislative update 2025. I have had an ear-to-ear grin on my face probably since Friday. So let's hope that I was dancing yesterday. So for those of you who have not been following this, Senator Liskey has been our champion this year, and we've had so many champions throughout the year. It's been Senator Matthews, it's been Jim Newberger, Representative Shane,
Senator Dibble.
yep, Senator Westrom, Senator Hoffman. I mean, there's a huge list, and
Yes.
we're gonna have to thank all of them, especially once this passes, because we're crossing our fingers and toes. We may have to do some lobbying still on the House side a little bit, because this is the ag bill, the omnibus ag bill will be going to conference committee because the House and the Senate do not match up. But on Thursday morning, I found out there was going to be a meeting. We were having a meeting at the Capitol at Senator Liskey's office with the MDA. And that's when everything took place. But to kind of take a step back, we have Senate File 391, which was the cottage food bill this year. What the cottage food bill would do to the exemption would change the word individual to person with this. It would take the $78,000 gross revenue cap and move it up to $85,000. And then it would allow for shipping of the human cottage food products. Yay, you're right. Well, so when I was asked to testify, I went up to Senator Liskey's office and happened to get there a little early, and happened to get there just as MDA was walking in the door to have a meeting with Senator Liskey about our bill. So I was able to sit in on that meeting. And during that meeting, we discussed topics that dated back to pre-2021, which is great. And Senator Liskey did a lot of listening and asked the MDA to come back with an amendment then based on our discussion. So we waited, and then we, on March 13th, they came back with an amendment. But that amendment included things we did not talk about that weren't necessarily good for cottage foods. So what we were asked by Senator Liskey to do was to look it over and comment on what we could accept, what we could not accept, and then give it back to the MDA to see what they would say, because it truly is a negotiating, it really is it's negotiating to see what works best and what works for everybody. You got to give a little to get a little. And it was dead in the water. They weren't willing to negotiate at all. Dead in the water. I did have a meeting with Representative Paul Anderson, who said he was going to try, he was going to get it on the agenda on the House side, but then they got really busy and we didn't have time to get it on there. Of course, they started late and we're trying to get everything done that first session, so I get it. But when I got back from being out of town on Thursday morning, and I was calling Senator Liskey about another bill that I found in the omnibus bill that the MDA was putting in there, I found out that we were having this meeting, and it was with just one person at the MDA, Deputy Commissioner Andrea Vabel. And so I got up there and sat down, and we discussed everything. We negotiated out, we went through the entire amendment with our comments, and we negotiated. And this is what we came up with. So MDA went and wrote the amendment. Senator Liskey went and got a hold of Senator Kubik because he's on the Ag Committee, and he was also a co-author of the legislation 2 years ago, and co-author of the Micro Enterprise Kitchen last year. And he agreed to offer the amendment, and Andrea worked really hard for us to get all the players at the MDA on board with this. So this is what we came up with, and so the word individual is going to be changed to the word person. Yay. So we won't have any more LLC
We
problems.
should not have any more.
None.
LLC.
One of their concerns is by doing this, they want to be able to make sure that they know who to get a hold of if there is a problem. So what that means is they wanted to put language in there so that, for example, I'm going to use Tom and I'm going to use Jamie as an example. Tom has a cottage food registration and a wholesaler's license, right? Jamie, you have the same, correct? Okay. Moving forward for you guys in 2026, when you go to re-register as a cottage food producer, because you have those two, if you are using the same name, so if you're using, sorry, I'm not going to pronounce your last name, I'll kill it, Jamie Zeus, which we know you're not, as a cottage food producer and Jamie Zeus as a wholesaler, you will no longer be allowed to register both of those names that way. You can hold a registration and you can hold a license, but they have to be separate entities. So what that means is a human being, which you're a human being, can have a registration either in your human being name, your individual name, and you can have a business license in a separate entity. So that means you'll have to do some sort of structure with the Secretary of State. Make sense? Additionally, the LLC will be limited to 2 individuals for cottage food purposes, okay? And we can be sole proprietors. I think it's a reasonable request. The rationale behind it was they had some company for Wyoming doing business in Minnesota. They needed to try to get a hold of that responsible person in Wyoming. In the state of Minnesota, if you have an LLC, you have to have a responsible party who you can get a hold of. It's not that case in Wyoming. So give a little, get a little, right?
Quick clarification real quick.
Yep.
So, say for my wholesale register.
Yep.
You put in the LLC, so Spidermonkey's Bake Shop LLC.
Yep.
Then can the cottage food stay Spidermonkey's Bake Shop without the LLC? Or does it have to change
No, you should be able to do that.
Okay.
If you wanted to do an LLC for your,
for the wholesale?
you could do it for both of them if you wanted to, and you'll have to talk to your attorney about that. But I know like even, well, no, it has to be a different name though, I think, from
So it has to
purposes.
change it.
It has to change a little bit. So
So the
Kathy,
LLC doesn't change. the
yeah,
name.
there was a Kathy Bixby, I think is how you say her last name. And she had just Take the Cake down in Austin or Albert Lee, I can't remember. And she ended up getting a mobile food truck. And so she had just Take the Cake for her cottage food business. And for her mobile business, it was just Take the Cake 2. So there, there's a way to do it. It's just you're gonna have to do it.
That change at all for sole proprietorship?
No, you can be a sole proprietor and have your registration. You can be your registration, you can be an LLC or anything like that. But if you're a sole proprietor and you're using your name, so Mike Young, right? You can't use Mike Young if you decide to do a wholesale. You have to have a separate entity. Does that make sense? Yep, okay. So there's that. Any other questions on that? Any questions online? Okay, is that clear as mud for everybody? Okay. So, moving on from that. No, okay. In 2021, part of the legislation that we offered was to go to a single tiered system with tier 2 training. Right now you have 2 tiers. The first tier, you do an online PowerPoint presentation that is not interactive at all. It's 20 questions. It never changes. You can do it in your sleep, right? Okay, we have that. And then we have the tier 2 training. We're going to a single tiered system. There will no longer be a tier 1 and tier 2. It'll be a single tiered system with okay. And you will be required to take the tier 2 training every 3 years. Okay. That is something we have advocated for as an association. Farmers Market Association has advocated for it. We just want to have a strong foundation in food safety.
There's a lot more information with this training, from all the way from how to package your stuff to how to make sure that it's food safe, best safe practices. And it's important to make sure that everybody is aware of these things.
Yeah, because what we do on the ground impacts everybody in the state. Does that make sense? Any questions? Any comments, concerns? Yep, Mike?
Just to make sure I'm understanding, so going forward, this passage, going forward, everyone would be required to take the tier 2 training.
Yep, every 3 years.
Every 2 years, and that is.
3 years.
Oh, 3 years, that is in person, right?
In person or online. I don't know if they've totally got the in-person on, but there is an online option as well. And from speaking with MDA, they will probably have additional resources for training, but stay tuned for that. And then the registration, there will be a $30 fee. Right now, only tier 2 pays a fee, and it's $50. It's $30 across the board. And we advocated for that in 2021. We actually advocated for $25 because really there is a cost to doing business, and that $25 and $50, I would say in a majority of the situations, is not going to be a barrier to entry in a food business at all. I know we're not going to make everybody happy, but I think for a majority of people, this is really going to work. And I have even better news after this.
Question online.
$30.
Says, will we have to do this for 2026? I'm assuming.
It will start in 2026. If you are registered now, because that was one of the things when I was sitting in the committee, I'm like, hey, wait a minute, Andrea, we didn't talk about this. And she's like, great question. And Catherine Simon came over and we talked, and no, you will not have to pay that fee until 2026 if you are registered by June 30th of this year. Okay, so everything will impact current registries next year.
And just for clarification on the training, just for in case people that have been tier 1 that have a question, that is a self-paced training. It's not something that like, you know, say like sit at your computer for a scheduled time. So it's very flexible.
Yeah, and it's nice too because you have access to it afterwards. Yep. Thanks for offering that. That's great information to have, Ryan.
And also to clarify, you will need to have the training done before you register.
Yes.
Because when you get done with the training, you receive a certificate. And to register, at least for right now for tier 2, which in 2026 would likely be for everybody, is when you register, you have to actually provide the date of your training certificate as well.
Yep, and that is in
Email
here.
it to them. So it's not the kind of thing where you could register and then do the training. It's the kind of thing where you will do training and then register.
Yes.
And likely the situation would be that you want to get training sometime at the end of the year, just to make sure that you're not running into it. And yeah, there probably will be a lot of people doing training, but most of the training right now is online.
Yeah.
So, and it's not like synchronous watching videos.
Yes. And being it is self-paced, don't wait until the last week of December to start it. Start it sooner because you can finish it and then finish it as close to that end date of December as possible.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, it was just, if you could take it, we'll do it now or not, that's all.
Yeah, you can do it now if you like, but if it was me, yeah, definitely. You can do it however you choose.
Remember, it's 3 years from the date you take it.
Yep,
Yeah,
it's 3 years from the date you take.
Role in association.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Not worried.
Perfect. And for some people,
Well, I will throw this out there with the training timing though. And this was told to me like a year ago, and it was funny. If you re-register, say, at 2.5 years, and say the date that you did your training was June, if you register in the beginning of that year, then you will have to re-register with new training in June, because in June, your training expires.
Mhm.
And then at that time, your certificate is no longer valid.
yes,
Which, so what was given to me, because I've been a tier 2 for my whole time in Star Food, what was recommended to me was take your training, even though mine started in like May, and that's when my renewal would have been, they said take the training in December or the very first week of January, so that the next time it gets renewed, you don't have to worry about having to redo.
it's a
You
line.
have to pay the fee again then too. So
Yep.
think strategically about that time.
Or, and also if you don't do that, put it on your calendar so you don't let it expire and you get it in there so you don't have to re-register and pay a fee again. Okay. And then something that so one of the things they wanted in the amendment was to be able to adjust registration fees. The commissioner could, if he wanted to, every 5 years. And that was one of the things we're like, absolutely not. It needs to go in front of a lawmaker. Senator Westrom in another amendment actually solidified that in the licensing fees part and it passed to add a little clause in there about the cottage food exemption, not being able to have the fees adjusted by the commissioner. So that was good. Alrighty, so now moving on to the most important part. If this passes, we will be able to ship all of our cottage food products within the state of Minnesota. Who would have thought we would have got it? So
It's still not signed yet.
it's not signed yet, but we do have MDA support. We're gonna maybe have to do a little bit of lobbying on the House side, maybe not.
Everybody needs to send letters to their House representatives.
Yep, we will tell you when to do it, because right now we just need to get to Representative Anderson next week and let him know. It's gonna be a couple of weeks probably. I don't know when because it'll have to go to the bills, both sides are gonna have to go to conference committee. This is pushed forward to the finance committee on the Senate side. Hopefully it passes, short of the omnibus bill after it comes through conference committee and gets sent to the floor. If it passes, then we just have to wait for the governor to sign it. If the governor doesn't sign it after 30 days, it becomes law. If for some reason it doesn't pass on the House floor, it could go back to conference committee, they could rework it, it could go back, whatever. If it doesn't go back again, they could pass just a shell of an omnibus bill. So let's fingers crossed that doesn't happen. So we're very, very optimistic. So very optimistic.
Do we know if there's any more progress on the micro kitchen they talked about last year?
We'll move on to that next. Okay. So any questions online about our? Okay. Okay, so yay. So yay, everybody?
Yeah.
Yay. Yeah, okay. Anybody have any concerns about the registration fee that they want to talk about now or anything like that? Nope. Good.
Registrations skipping the calendar year and not
Yep.
based on registration.
Yep, it's calendar year. It's following, everything's the same. Yep. And if you're currently registered, you will not have to pay that fee till 2026. And all of that.
Yeah.
So yeah. You're grin, yay, over the moon. So
Yay, Jay.
yay, everybody. It's been a team effort. It took a decade, but we got it. Actually, we're getting closer. Yeah, but, and from talking to Senator Liskey, you know, realistically, let's say it happens and they have to do a shell of an omnibus bill or whatever. Next year, hopefully it's just a formality because MDA is on board. I mean, we came together, we negotiated. Senator Liskey wanted them to write the amendment, to offer it. We separated, we came back. I mean, we wrote it to, you know, it was written together. So just hope it passes this year and we don't have to go back next year. Okay.
Yeah.
And even Senator Putnam gave Senator Liskey huge accolades during the committee hearing. So
Yeah, that's good.
yeah, and I was glad I actually went because they had me come up and had me testify. So, okay, moving on to micro enterprise kitchen. Okay, so the food modernization project that they've been working on, the MDA. That's how this all came about, on Thursday morning. I found language in the omnibus bill for their home food processor license. We had asked for the language, we didn't receive it, it was embargoed in the governor's budget. It did come out on the 13th of March, the same time they sent us the amendment. But we didn't get the language for that, didn't know it was there until we found it in Senate File 2458, by the way, that's our omnibus bill in the Senate 2458. So we found the home food processor license, a couple of problems with it. It really didn't do all that much. There were no third-party sales in it, no room for shipping. In fact, you had to have your home food processor license to sell it to the ultimate end consumer, or have somebody else who was a home food processor licensed individual business to sell it for you. And the thing that was really interesting is it was a shell. It was just like a total shell with some stuff in it, right? And I just kind of the basics, but no nuts and bolts, if that makes sense. And what happened though is they had at the end, they had a statement for a rulemaking process. But the problem we had with the rulemaking process, there wasn't like a definite, it was something about 18 months. I could pull it out and read it, but it wasn't, it had to be done in 18 months, but a license couldn't be issued. And it just kind of kept it where they could keep just kind of keep you in limbo and kicking that can down the road. So we got a hold of our senators and there was a big discussion. Long story long, the MDA ended up pulling it on Friday morning right before the committee meeting. So we don't have to worry about that right now. What that means for micro enterprise right now is we're not going to get micro enterprise this year, but you know what? Maybe next year, maybe the year after next. You just have to advocate. Yes.
Could you give a little background on what micro enterprise is?
So micro enterprise kitchen opens up what you're able to make at home. It allows for time temperature control. Ultimately, what we are suggesting would be third-party sales. So you could sell to a bakery to use it to make sandwiches or resell it or whatever they wanted to do with it. Everything can be made in your home. There's no limitation. There was a home inspection in the first bill that the MDA wrote, because that's where our bill came from, was from the MDA at first. And what they wanted is they wanted a 3-year cap on it, but we took that out. But the next bill that Senator Kupik and Senator Liskey wrote did away with the inspections, because MDA, one of their concerns when we had our town hall meeting that was talked about a little bit, and then they started talking about, they were concerned about going into individual homes for inspections. So then they rewrote the bill for self-inspection. But basically, in a nutshell, no income cap, you'd be licensed, may or may not need an inspection. And you can ship. You can ship anywhere. I don't know if it'd be just in the state of Minnesota or not.
Just confirm, are micro enterprises, is that the same as micro bakeries that we're seeing as legislation in other states?
It's the one that we proposed. It would be this, it would be different. The
No,
micro,
it's different than other states.
it's different.
Well, no, because one question on my list is that the micro bakery we see online in other states?
It's the same concept, but
Just-
it's different in the state of
Being
Minnesota.
different
Yes.
formats.
As an association, where we got our language for the first micro enterprise bill was directly from MDA's language. The author of it was an employee of the MDA. We took that language, we worked with a food scientist. We removed the 3-year, because it used to be a 3-year maximum, then they wanted you to have a commercial kitchen. And then we just kind of fine-tuned a few little things, because you know how the gray area was with community event, and that was a 7-year conversation. We just wanted to try to avoid 7-year conversations, so we just tweaked a couple. It didn't change it, it just tweaked it so that it wasn't left up for interpretation in the field. And so, but when that moved forward, they take, one of the big things I feel, and it really does happen, is that if something wants to be killed, they kill it with a big price tag, okay? So that's what happened. Huge dollar amounts, and not that, and I'm not diminishing that, it's gonna cost money, but how much money? So they a lot of times bills are killed because there's not enough funding. But we also have to look at what's good for Minnesota and entrepreneurship and everything, and our food banks and food deserts and stuff. So hopefully we can move forward and get something like that passed eventually. But for now, we're gonna take the win, because if everything passes, and we're very optimistic that it will, we will be shipping all of our cottage food products as of July 1st. So yay. Oh, wait a minute, I forgot one thing. Also, the cap will be adjusted every 2 years automatically. For inflation based on the consumer price indexing. So that will continue for forever. It's not just once, it's forever. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, please just punch. Yay. Any other questions? Okay. Alrighty.
Good job.
Yay. High five, bro. Alrighty, so I do need 5 minutes here. We're running a little bit ahead of time. I need to hand out a few things and then we're gonna get into labeling. I need 5-10 minutes. Is that okay with everybody? You're welcome, Darren. So I'm sorry for everybody online, but we are running a little bit ahead and we'll probably finish early. But I just need a couple of minutes here to gather my ducks for the label presentation, okay? So it is 2:38. Let's meet back here at, how about 2:50?
Are you gonna want to just,
Have any questions about today that are you pretty confident in the way you produce your labels out of curiosity? How about online, Shelley? Anybody?
Darren said he had to leave the bus.
Goodbye.
Thank you for the word.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I feel pretty good with my labels.
Okay, so everybody's pretty good, so we can kind of fly through this and just kind of do the updates a little bit. So if I'm droning on too much about anything, let me know. Okay. So product labeling, we have had some changes to product labeling. Federally, which impact us locally here in the state of Minnesota. So cottage foods, what's required on labeling? Your name, your registration number, or your address. I think somebody here was in their wholesale process and their licensor said, put your registration or your license number on it, because if they want to go through the hassle of looking you up, that means that it's somebody that really needs to get a hold of you. Yeah, was that you? Yeah. And it makes sense because the reason why we asked for this to be changed back in 2021 is there had been some people who had some scary kind of shady people at their houses. So, and I think in Iowa, somebody was actually attacked. So, make that extra level for you if you choose to do so. And it also frees up a lot of room on your label. Date processed or canned. So let's say that you're a cookier and you have a big event coming up and you make cookie dough in advance and you freeze it. And then you bring it back out and you bake it. When do you put the process date on it? When you baked it. Yep. I always recommend keeping a log of what you have in your freezer and when you made it, just in case. But there you go. Same thing with canned. Ingredients on there, allergens or possible allergens, and the statement these products are homemade and not subject to state inspection. What? Go ahead. Really?
Like every show we go do the appointment or like now it's not a.
Yep. You only have to worry about the 9 major allergens, which we'll get to here in a little bit. Those are the only ones that you're required to by law to put on your human cottage food products. So what do you include on your label? Yay, our new legislation, if it passed, there's no more gray area. Sole proprietorship, that's your name. Okay, DBA, you're doing business as, that is whatever you have filed as a name with the Secretary of State, but it is still a sole proprietorship or a business name. So if you have an LLC or a corporation, so on and so forth. Make sense? Yep.
So my cottage food license, I did that before I
Mhm.
which game I actually got my DBA on my label, then the company name I have, and then I've also got my personal name on it also. Which
Your DBA, because that's who you're doing business as. If you filed a DBA, you use your DBA. If you haven't, you use your personal name, and if you have your LLC or a corporate name or whatever you've done, then you'd use that name. Make sense? Yeah.
do I need to
Go ahead.
do I need to change? Do I need to have my change?
I would contact your the liaison, just send in an email with your cottage food registration number on there. And then tell them that you have, you're doing business as, you have a DBA. I don't know, I do not work for the MDA. It used to be they would just simply update that for you.
Yeah, I did that. Registration.
Mhm.
Name and I just, yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Any other questions? Okay, here's a picture of my 2023 registration. I did not put my 2024 on here. But my 2024 one and my 2025 one now says Carriveau Jennifer DBA Zella Mays LLC. Don't even go there. Anyways, again, if you look up the Minnesota Department of Agriculture, just do a quick search and do MDA license lookup. It should direct you to this. Search all licenses. You have to do the search all licenses to find your cottage food registration. Yeah, but if you go to all licenses, it's all of them, and then you can just, it works out, it's easier. One less click. Okay, what date is used? Canned goods? Is it the date you put the sticker on it? The date it's canned, yep. And also, did she go over a log for your pH and that type of thing?
Yeah.
Okay, so use that practice also, so then you can keep track of how many jars, maybe label batch A, somehow label that jar. It's just good standards practice. That's the big thing, having a good standard of practice. Same thing with frozen cookie dough. Do the exact same thing, keep a log. Not required, recommended. pH record is required. Disclosure. On every label and at every point of sale, these products are homemade and not subject to state inspection. That's what's in the law. We used to have these two. These canned goods are homemade and not subject to state inspection, but in the law is this phrase. These products are homemade and not subject to state inspection. If you have these, you can use either one. I don't think it'd be a problem, but this is the statement that belongs on there. It also belongs on your websites, any type of social media that you use.
Doesn't necessarily be on the website, but if you're selling from your website.
Yes, if you're selling from your website,
any
yes.
Place where there's sales happening, that has. But like, if you just have a website for your business, it doesn't, I mean, it's good to have that on there.
I would
but
put
it's
it
not
under this,
legally required.
only if you're selling.
But if you have a shop where people can buy, that sort of thing, then.
And if it was for me, I would put it on my website anyways, because you're gonna have a phone number. It's going to push them to that point of sale. But yeah, he is right. You do not have to have it on there unless you're selling on it. But if you have a menu with prices and stuff like that, I'd err on the side of caution. Okay, ingredients and allergens, the listed ingredients. All your ingredients that you use must be on your label. We are not required to have sub-ingredients on there. And we'll get to that a little bit later, but you're not required unless it has an allergen in the sub-ingredients. The allergens that need to be listed under the contains are milk, eggs, fish, shellfish, tree nuts, peanuts, wheat, sesame seeds, and soybeans. Okay, note, this is new now. Milk and eggs are now require the species of origin, if not from a cow or a chicken. Okay, we're gonna do a little trivia, because I found out some things I thought were pretty cool. Again, the geek in me coming out. What do you think the top 9 consume global, huh?
I was gonna answer the question.
Okay, you be quiet, because I think I told you something. This is for everybody, but anybody I talked to last night. What are the top 9 milks consumed globally by humans? So what animals were there? There's 9 of them. Goat, cow, yak, sheep, camel. No, camel's one of them. I know, right? Water buffalo. Buffalo milk, water buffalo. Huh? Huh? I don't know about that one. So it's cow's milk, goat's milk, sheep's milk, buffalo milk, camel milk, and some of the lesser known ones. donkey milk, mare milk, moose milk, yak milk. I even saw reindeer milk.
Why did you say mare milk just instead of saying horse milk?
I don't know.
That's
That's what they
weird,
call
cause
it.
you might as well just call it cow.
Yeah, well, down here they say horse, so
I say it's mare.
it is. But the most consumed in the world is cow milk. And so then I had to go on this whole deep dive search of, okay, can I get camel milk? Can I get water buffalo milk? And believe it or not, there is a farm in the United States where you can get some of that stuff. But you can get dehydrated camel milk for the little pouch of it for $74, I think, and 98 cents online. It's like,
Ask me which one's the second one.
what's the second most in order of prevalence? The number one is cow. How many of you, okay, in the world, this isn't just in the United States, in the world. The number one is cow. What do you think the number two is? Goat is 3.
Five syllables. A hippopotamus?
First word, 2 syllables. Second word, 3 syllables. You might want to swim in it.
It was just a guess, but you know.
Water buffalo. Yeah. But reindeer was the one that really kind of threw me, but that's not in the top 9, but yeah, isn't that crazy? Okay. So, okay. And then for eggs, if it's not from a chicken, so if it's quail, duck, goose, whatever, or ostrich, if you have a really big batch of something, Tom, he's rolling his eyes at me. I'm like reading this and just like gushing it up. So if you have let's say you have this huge cake you're going to make and you have this ginormous mixer, because it would have to be really big because these ostrich eggs are huge, right? Anyways, 1 chicken egg is 2 ounces of an ostrich egg. So if you do that, hey, take pictures. But I guess they're supposed to be really rich and delicious. It's just high protein. So yeah. And it's really interesting if you go on like this Eggs Institute research place, there is a list. And if anybody wants it afterwards, we can look it up, but it'll tell you like the properties of eggs and what to do with them and which dishes they're good in. And there are some eggs that actually have a very low shelf life that you should never use. So kind of interesting.
So like, if it's not, so like, it's like, say if I were to use duck eggs in my baked goods, I would have to put on their duck eggs rather than just egg.
Yep, duck eggs, quail eggs, goose eggs, emu eggs. They even have anyway, yeah, eggs. Alrighty. So and you need to consider this before making your label. Make sure that the size of the allergen statement is no smaller than the ingredients list. Size 8 font is what they use in FDA labels, no lower than that. So keep that in mind. Use the same wording as the major 9 allergens. So for an example, allergen statement containing butter should say contains milk, not contains butter. Even though that second statement is true, the name of the allergen is milk, not butter. Okay. Milk, not sour cream. Milk, not cream cheese. You get the picture. The allergens, yeah, great idea. Me too. Definitely. Okay. Consider the following before making your label. So you do have like products you make all the time, right? So if you suspect that the consumer may know that may not know that a particular ingredient is an allergen, like then you encase it next to it if you want. Then it's best to declare the allergen specifically as a contains statement, like contains milk. So you can do it one of 2 ways, which will show you. So you can have like flour with the word wheat in parentheses afterwards, or you can have it in a contains wheat at the bottom. So if you don't think that they know that flour is wheat, make sure you have a contains wheat. And then also, I think I have a slide on this. And if the product includes either tree nuts, fish, or crustacean shellfish, then you must specify the specific ingredient that falls within that category. I'm going to give you guys a link eventually here. And write that down because they've actually changed some of the nut allergens and fish allergens. So that's also important. And what I'll do is, didn't I send it to you? Shelly, did I send you my PowerPoint? Not my PowerPoint, but there's another file I'll send to you and you can put it up for everybody to download because it has a lot of really good information and it's directly from the FDA's website. So then I'll get you guys, you can write down the FDA's website with this, document and then. Okay. Okay. Ultimately, what matters is your allergen statement is truthful and not misleading. The may contain statement, that cannot be part of your contain statement. So like if you have contains wheat, milk, eggs, soy, don't write right away, may contain nuts. That has to be totally separate from it. Okay? And it shouldn't matter what other allergens are present. Okay, so, and what happens is the allergens, it shouldn't matter that you have the other allergens in your food facility because you should have a clean space for whatever you're working on. So that is not part of your contained statement. If you want to have a separate disclaimer somewhere on your label, go for it. It just can't be by that contained statement.
For ingredients that we use that have a produced in a facility that also be nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Should we include that?
I would, I just would not put it near the contained statement. This product may contain tree nuts, you know, or whatever they say it may contain, because yeah, realistically in that facility, there should not be cross-contamination, but stuff happens.
Frequently on like chocolate
chips, because
chocolate
yeah,
chips, like they always say
may
produced in a
contain.
facility that may contain or produced in a facility that also.
Yeah.
It's not legal to.
No.
Okay, for gas station, this is just not legally required, but if you think that there's a chance enough that you want your customers, there's no problem.
But it's not legally required by the FDA either. It's just one of those disclaimers that people put on there. You just don't want it anywhere near that contained statement, and that's per Greg Abbott, from the FDA, the liaison that we talked. I don't know if it's Abbott.
Has an allergen statement and then a statement under it that says this. If I inspector is also. Under it.
Yeah, you're gonna have, yeah, it's gonna be separate from it. It can be under it, but it has to be separate from it. Because it can't be part of your contained statement, yeah. What is Greg's last name?
Like a space.
Gable. I knew it wasn't Abbott, Greg Gable, sorry.
One thing to, I feel like Shelley we talked about. Something to keep in mind, particularly for those that bake, like certain ingredients, particularly sprinkles, like contain some weird ingredients that are fish and crustacean based.
Exactly, food coloring.
Pay attention to your ingredients of those, like your sprinkles and what other decorations to make sure to follow.
Yes, exactly. And like your almond extract really isn't almond usually, it's something different. So yeah. Yep.
Statement that says. Better.
Exactly.
But that's why I think it's also important to wear, like, even though you don't have food. So, again, there's no reason, we use the equipment, so we use that. So we use, we can use, there may be situations where some ingredient, in this case, like this, isn't actually. So, but what is the name that's I was told by MBA that.
Now for me, I would,
Because it's a highly refined soybean oil, it is not considered.
so for me, if that was the case, and while I totally believe that your licensor has all the knowledge he needs, I would get that in writing. And I would actually go to the FDA with it as well, just because an allergic reaction, depending on how severe it is, can kill somebody. But yeah.
It also depends on how allergic somebody is. I have a cousin that all he has to do is walk through a room where somebody has been baking peanut butter cookies, and he will go into animal
Okay. So one last thing about the may contain statement. Do not rely on a may contains statement to compensate for bad food processing practices. That's where your good standard of practice is always really good. SOP, SOP, SOP. Because it might stop somebody from eating it, but it doesn't mean that you're exempt from liability. So building your compliant product, okay? So first, write your allergen statement based on the information you've collected. And remember, your product contains all the allergens, which are those major 9 in your ingredients. And it might be in sub-ingredients of your main ingredients, okay? So always read the labels of everything you're using in that product. If you have recipes that you're making all the time, take the time to make a comprehensive list of all the flavors, additives, everything in it, the weights and everything, so it makes it really easy for you to create that label. Okay, so here we have chocolate chips. One of the things we just got, and there isn't any in here, I don't see, but somebody just asked a question about chocolate chips that contained a liqueur. Kind of a good standard of practice, if you have something like a bag of chocolate chips that is being sold on a grocery store floor that has a little bit of liquor or liqueur in it, it is going to be so minimal that you're going to be able to use it in your product. Additionally, it's like a half of 1%, a half of a percent you can have liquor in a product. If anybody is making products with liquor in them, reach out to Shelly or myself, and we can either help you or direct you to people that can help you. But you look at this ingredient, semi-sweet chocolate, and see for FDA purposes in parentheses. You put everything, all the sub-ingredients in there, right? Okay. Mint confectionery, and then it has contained statement, milk and soy ingredients, period. And then in bold, may contain peanuts, nuts, wheat, and egg ingredients, period. So it is separated. Just make sure it's separated. It's 2 separate statements. Always add more onto your label as much as you possibly can with the sub-ingredients, especially these dyes. And we all know that these dyes, some of them may be going away, but there are people with food sensitivities and big allergies. I have a friend who actually has that red dye allergy, and it's deadly for her. Questions on that? And you do, we already talked about this, but again, you declare your allergen in one of 2 ways. Sample, parentheses right after, the flour, the lectin, soy, flour, wheat, whey, milk. Whey with milk. If this whey is goat's milk, it's now going to have to say goat's milk. You're going to have to look on that whey product and make sure it's cow's milk and not goat's milk, or whatever kind of milk is made, it's made out of. Or immediately after it contains. Here's a picture and an example listing the allergens. This is an FDA one without the nutritional facts. And you can see how they use the parentheses. And then here's one with sub-ingredients in parentheses, which yes, includes some allergens, but they have the contained statement at the end. Ingredients on the label are also required to be listed in descending order of prominence, so by weight. So from the heaviest to the lightest. Weights of common ingredients. Here's just kind of an overview. Actually got it from King Arthur's Baking. And they actually have a list, just kind of a generic, so it kind of gives you an idea. Yeah, every different product could weigh something a little bit different because of the molecular makeup, but it's going to be pretty darn close. So it's a good resource. And if you don't have a scale, you can get them on Amazon so inexpensively. Spices and flavors. On ours, all ingredients need to be listed. Spices, natural flavors, artificial flavors declared in list ingredients according to the FDA. They may be declared in ingredients list by either just using a specific common or usual name, or by using the declaration spices, flavor, or natural flavor, or artificial color. However, products that are spices or spice blends, flavors, or colors must list each ingredient by name. MDA, we have to list all of our ingredients. List your cinnamon, list your nutmeg, so on and so forth. But now if you have an allspice, legally by MDA, you only have to do the allspice, but realistically list them. And always don't forget the food coloring. There's an FDA file on them because there are some people with some big, they'll have, well, allergic or have some bad reactions. How many of you list your colorings on your labels? No, I do. When I'm making my cookie kits, I do, definitely. For my. Okay. Food coloring too, when we were talking about things in your food coloring, like, fish, shellfish and different things. If you go to AmeriColor Corp, the allergen information, they have an allergen information for each one of their colors. So if you use AmeriColors, they do, I'm sure other dyes do as well. Okay, so here's some label examples. This one's from Karen Peterson. She is on our board. Karen Peterson, DBA, Confections by Karen. She would not have to have both of those. She could just have her DBA on there. She has her address and her phone number. Phone number is not required, but what a great way to advertise things. I do it all the time. She has the name above is registered with the cottage produce, the Minnesota Brand. These items are not subject to state inspection. All you really need is that on there. If you want to add more verbiage, go ahead. It just depends on how much room you have on your label. So here she has the name of her product. Name isn't required, but it's good to have. And she has everything in flour with the parentheses, and she also has lists of sub-ingredients, sugar, molasses, so on and so forth. And then here we have her allergens: milk, eggs, wheat, fried and vegetable oil, soy, and then the date it was made. Yes?
I've seen it both ways. In your example, 2 slides back, this way, I got into a conversation with somebody about this. For leavening, is baking powders or baking soda, depending on fine, or should we actually list it as leavening? And then, like your example previously had sodium bicarbonate, comma, with baking powder, so sodium bicarbonate and sodium acid.
So what we had before was an FDA label. If you were regulated by the FDA, you'd have to have that. Being that it's cottage foods, you can have baking soda, baking powder. If you want to add additional information beyond that, you sure can. Okay, another label example, Sally Baker, registration number, everything that you need on there. Just not all that extra fluff. That's just your bare bone basic.
Makes sense.
Oops.
So you said earlier that butter, product.
Yes,
So-
butter should be milk,
So
yes.
Could they actually take butter off there?
No, because you have butter, and by law, you have to have all the ingredients on there. But there's butter and milk on it, but the milk is the allergen. You have to have both
That's only referred to.
as milk, yeah. Yep, good question. Okay, here we have one, chocolate caramel delight. If you're making, I use Avery labels just to print them off. And then I do a made on so I can handwrite it in. I here have my address instead. I don't do that. I usually use my registration number, and then I have my phone number. We have ingredients. And I moved this around a little bit to duck eggs. And I just have regular milk, not camel milk. It just makes me smile. Contains wheat, duck eggs, milk, and soy. Again, that milk is going to be cow milk. This product is homemade and not subject to state inspection. And for me, this product may contain nuts, because then it's totally separate. But having a period between would be a separation. Questions?
So I have a friend who does freeze-dried foods.
Yep.
They have to write on the label, and then they have another label.
That's fine. It just has to be on there. Yep. Yep.
They just like six.
Yep.
Does that get the date on it?
By law, it has to have the day it was produced. If you have a date on there, I don't know that, I mean, they need to know that that was, I mean, they need probably to note it somehow. that was the date it was made, would be my definitive answer until I talk to the MBA. I would err on the side of caution and make sure that it says made on.
So I don't think if you just have a date on there, there's no way of knowing what that is.
Yeah, is that an expiration date?
You wanna make sure that the customer, you wanna make sure your whole goal is always.
And that's one of the things cottage foods is founded on. You know, you have all that information out there because you're selling direct to the customer. You're giving them all the information they need. And it's giving consumers choice and whether they want to buy something that is made manufacturing place or made in a small kitchen. You want to give them all the information. Yep. Oh yeah, that's why I keep that like that. I handwrite it in now. But if I'm going to do a farmer's market or something like that, and I'm going to do a bagillion cookies, I just back out that line and then I put the date in. And that's the nice thing about Avery. It's so easy to use. And I'm sure label makers are as well, but I haven't done that yet.
I have a date stamp.
Oh yeah,
I
perfect.
was gonna say, date stamp can be.
Yes. Frustration.
What's fun in your library?
Yeah. Oh, you're gonna be Dewey too, eh? Alrighty. So again, if you use duck eggs, it's not just eggs anymore, it's duck eggs. And if you do a little reading on it, you understand why, because they are different. They are different. Okay, what's wrong with this label? Can y'all read it? Want me to read it to you, or can you see?
It says walnuts instead of tree nuts.
No, you have to specify the end.
You specify the nut, but yeah. So ingredients: flour, sugar, butter, eggs, milk, chocolate, walnuts, soy lectin, baking soda, baking powder, vanilla, salt. Contains wheat, milk, soy, walnuts. Date prepared 3/23/2023. Salamis LLC, chocolate chip cookies, MBA registration number, phone number, and this product is homemade and not subject to inspection. One thing, what's missing?
Period at the end of this.
Very good. What's the second thing that's missing? Yeah, but milk chocolate's fine because I have
Have to do the sub.
no, I don't have to do the sub ingredients.
They're allergens.
No, it's walnuts because it's the type of nut.
No, I don't think it has to be the general category treatment.
No.
Cause my
And that-
instructor.
It has to be the type. It's food. It's food related. So it's in here. Anybody online catch it? What's missing? One thing's missing.
Oh, I see. But eggs from the.
Yeah, eggs are an allergen. Yep. There you go. Okay. And if you're, Tom gets a cookie. But, and like I said, you can jazz up your cookie thing. You can take pictures of your cookies, whatever. Obviously, that is not my cookie. But yeah. Label examples. This is a pet treat. Registration number, Salamis, phone number, date again, ingredients. Pets do not have allergens. They have certain things that they cannot eat. I'm learning a lot of things like cherry pits. Do you know that they have cyanide? And all these different things, yeah. I have 4 dogs of my own. Actually, I have a 5th one right now, but we make a lot of pet treats. Anyways, but yeah, there's no allergens. But there are foods that they should not eat. So just stay away from those. Again, these products are homemade and not subject to state inspection, and these can be shipped. Questions on that one? Purchasing a label printer. How many of you have label printers? Okay, you're gonna be more experts than I am on this. Tom, what do you have to say about your label printer?
We love it.
Okay, why do you love it?
One of the biggest things is, a lot of label printers are 200 DPI. You get the 300 DPI, especially since we're printing smaller labels. you really want that higher DPI. And it's not, I mean, and if you're gonna buy on Amazon, don't trust the title. A lot of times I would go away and say 30 DPI, and I would go in and say 200.
Okay, so I'm gonna repeat that up here since I have a microphone unless yours is on. So we're talking about, okay, we're talking about these label printers right now with Tom, and Tom said if you're looking for a label printer, because of the size of our labels, make sure they're 300 DPI. Do not go lower than 300 DPI. And for those of you who don't know, DPI is dots per inch.
I'll open up my audio too there. Anybody else?
That one's fat. Okay, I print out, I have Avery, obviously, but I print out like all my cards, all my labels, everything. So I go into the folder, this one's for this, these cookies or whatever, and there I just take that label and stick it on there. I don't have my date on there, obviously, if I can do that, but does that take more time, printing out individual labels every time you're gonna have a show or? an
Oh my
event?
goodness, no.
You know what I mean?
No, I mean, I just, so what I do is, so I use Avery to design my label. Then I save the individual label as a PDF. Then when I'm ready to print, I just open up with a free PDF reader, and I've already got a date field in there lined up. So I just put in the current date, and then I go into the printer and I say print 12, print 30, and they're done in 10 seconds. And that way I don't have to keep an inventory of pre-printed stuff. I print whatever I need when I need it.
Yeah.
So I do similar, I design mine in Canva.
And then from Canva, whether I'm using an Avery label, although I switched over to online labels, I put it into their thing, it's on my computer. So then whenever I need that ingredient, that particular product, I print that label for that week, and then I do handwrite in the date. Because I'm changing it, but everything's designed for, and I like, the reason I do it this way is I like color on my label and label. So for now, that's what we're doing. Laser printer, that quality, but either are great. I like color on mine, so that's where I do mine that way.
Yeah. I had that print now 2 years, I still haven't filled it, and I'm a secretary for 2 bowling leagues, I print out sheets, everything, every week and every end of the season. I can, my needs are so helpful.
Most things are.
Or if you use water, they do have waterproof matte labels, but they are very expensive.
Yeah, so that was my problem with too.
Have you had issues with
Yeah,
that?
with being a soft one, it's closing the refrigerator a lot of times. I want a waterproof labels, and I bought the Avery waterproof labels, and I used my inkjet on them, and it smeared really bad in the town where I just ended up having a professional label for it. It's probably good. Now I do know if you use the laser, you know if it does work. Didn't get
So here are some just different options. Any more comments on the laser printers? I know, or the label printers. I know Amazon, a lot of times will have sales and stuff, but you're right, on anything on Amazon, read the specs. Yep. But here's some different options of different size labels from Avery, labels for printers, and there's also a place called Sticker Mule. I think Muriel uses Sticker Mule quite a bit. So look at the online labels. Yeah, online labels, and then the other one, yep. Online labels, Avery, Amazon labels for printer, and then yeah, and Sticker Mule.
Is super cool because you can actually get bumper stickers.
Oh, really?
Like we did little 2x3 bumper stickers for 50 cents each.
Oh, wow.
They're like 200 of them.
Wow. That's pretty cool. Okay. And here's some resources for product labeling. This is the one. I think this is the one I want to show you guys quick. Let's see if it'll pop up or if I have to change my screen sharing. Yeah, yeah. Oh, I'm not? Okay.
Oh, I clicked on.
I think we chose this specific for rate, and it's not.
Yeah, that's what I'll have to just switch. Okay. So this is the most current guidance for the industry for food allergen and labeling requirements. And if you go down here, and it's to the FDA, you can general information, and then you can click on this and types of food. And there's a huge question and answer area. Can you all see it? And it's great because it really goes through it. There's stuff in here that's just not going to pertain to you, but it's kind of like digging in. When Jason talked about digging in, that's a big thing. You got to dig in. This is your business. And understand what you need in there. But it'll go down here, and in here, I know I found the listing of the nuts. So like coconut's no longer an allergen. There's a lot of information in here. The food sources. Trying to find it, like right here. The actual scientific name or the common name of the nuts that are allergens now, and it keeps going on. It talks about the duck eggs and everything. Go back to here for screen sharing. Will it? Where's that one at? This one? There we go. Then I don't have to worry about it anymore. Thank you. Up here's the cottage food laws. Here's a media download. I think this one's pretty good too, if I remember right. Can you take and copy those links? I will email them out to everybody. How's that? I'll do that right away. Nope. Here's the FDA. Here's safe serve and allergens. What you need to know. Whoops. The consumer milk, because that's what it's called, the consumer protection, milk protection thing. U of M training. All these are just some different resources for you. Alrighty, questions? Here we go. Were you paying attention? How many ounces of an ostrich egg is equal to 1 chicken egg? Yay. And fingers crossed, when will we be able to ship cottage food products? As long as everything goes the way it should. Well, no, but our bill could be passed before, and then it goes into it, then it would take, yeah. Fingers crossed. Alrighty.